Here is a graph of monopsony on a released AP exam question. So Woodland is a small town in which everyone works for Tree Mart, the local lumber company. Tree Mart is a monopsonist in the labor market and perfect competitor in the lumber market. In the short run, labor is the only variable input. The labor market for Tree Mart is given in the graph above. So first off, identify the profit maximizing quantity of labor. Well, that's when marginal factor cost equals marginal revenue product. So there is my equilibrium point that finds quantity. Drag it down, 100 units produced or hired. 100 units equals quantity of labor. Identify the wage rate Tree Mart pays to hire the profit maximizing quantity. Well, that's where we go to $10. We have to derive it from the supply of labor curve. That's the wage rate, so that's $10. Part C then can be a little bit confusing because it's saying in separate situations. So it says identify the quantity of labor hired in each of the following situations. So they're separate from each other. So part 1 says in a competitive labor market, then we would kind of change things and we would look for when supply equals demand, or there is no demand curve for monopsony, so we use the marginal revenue product. So here is the equilibrium of that if it were perfectly competitive, and they're looking for the answer of 200 units. Now, with part 2, it's separate situations, so forget about part 1, and I'm going to erase it off your screen because they're not asking you about that. Now it's saying, going back to a monopsony, now let's say the government imposes a minimum wage of $12.50. Explain. So we're looking for the quantity of labor hired again. So if we were going to institute a minimum wage, remember supply equals MRC, or it really equals the wage as well. So 12.5, this then becomes our new MRC, that's our minimum wage. I'm not going to draw the entire price floor because this then becomes my marginal factor cost up to that point. I have to pay that much. So the number that I would now hire would increase to 150 units. And the reason being is some combination of the supply curve or the marginal factor cost curve. Something is perfectly horizontal at 12.5 up to 150 units. So I've just kind of drawn this price floor up to here, but then the price floor is ineffective because then the supply curve takes over and they'd pay a higher wage anyway. Or they're willing to supply labor at those higher wages. And so the answer is 150 units because the supply curve is perfectly elastic up into 150 units when the regular supply curve takes over.